Good morning, Wicked at Expert Corner group. This is Sunday School Knife Talk. I made a bunch of videos for this week's installment, and I'm looking through the videos and I dropped the ball. I think I missed the elephant in the room. So I want to make this one last video and try to summarize so I don't miss anything. First, let me follow up on something. We went through left and right hand knives. This is a Fujiwara Kanafusa. That's the manufacturer. This is a 210 Gyuto knife. This one is a left-handed knife. This is a right-handed knife. We went all through it comparing the edges. I got a confirmation from the dealer, Koki Iwahara at JCK Knives, and he confirmed that this box, if this is Japanese in white, this is indeed the left-hand knife. Even though the left-hand knife and right-hand knife are labeled on the same side and the grinds look the same. Flatter on one side, 70-30 knife. 70-30 uneven knife. I expected them to be mirrors. They are not mirrors. To my dismay, they were not mirrors. That would have simplified it. Like the single-sided knife, the bevel is on one side. Clearly identifiable as a right-handed knife. The left hand is just as clearly. The bevel would be on this side on a left-handed knife. I got the letter from the dealer, from maker, Fujiwara Kanafusa's information for left-hand version knife. They will resharpen and make the left-handed version edge by water wheel whetstone hand sharpening process. That means the blade edge shape is adjusted for left-handed users by hand sharpening process. Blade grinding profile of right hand and left hand are the same. From the horse's mouth. I expected, and I don't know what you all expected, but I expected them to be mirror image. And I have a confirmation that for this particular brand, they are indeed the same knife. A 70-30 knife is a 70-30 knife. The knife is ground only one way on the profile of the knife. The profile, the cross section is the profile, the thickness of the knife, not just this shape, but one side compared to the other side because they are uneven beveled knives. But the left hand and the left hand and the right hand have the same cross section. The difference is in how the edge is sharpened. Left hand and right hand knives are sharpened with a bias for the way the knife is cut. In these V-grind double bevel knives. They're V-grind double bevel, but they're not sharpened evenly like a 50-50 grind knife. So if they are not understood, if you take the knife and you don't understand what you're sharpening, you could easily sharpen it like a ambidextrous knife. But the grind is different, so the knife will track off or pull. And that's where the edge grind, as you sharpen the bevels, the edge grind will affect how the knife is steered. So that's enough on that. Where I was remiss, I talked about all this stuff, but I didn't talk about the one thing that the elephant in the room that you all want to probably understand is sharpening single-sided knives. It's real complicated. I won't even start to talk about the mechanics, but I want to point out a couple things. This is, I call it a Yanagiba. I'm not pronouncing it right. But for a single-sided knife, that means the bevel is distinctly on one side. This is a right-handed. The knife is flatter or maybe even a little convex on the back side. The thought that a lot of people have is that these single-sided knives are like a chisel grind, that this whole bevel goes all the way to the tip. And when we're sharpening these, we're sharpening one big long bevel from, this is called the shinogi line, the break in the grind, this shinogi line to the tip. It's thought of as a single sharpening plane, that it's the whole bevel. That may be the case in a chisel grind knife. And it may even be the case in some special handmade yanagibas. This one is not like that. This knife has an edge bevel besides the grind and the shinogi line. So it gets complicated. And then when you're sharpening these, you're sharpening this in order to keep that spacing on that shinogi line parallel as you sharpen it. Built into these single-sided knives, I have a little one by Tohira. I don't remember what they call this. It's not a DP, it's something else by Tohira. And this one's a Dexter Basic. And you can see the shinogi line, and you can see that there is an edge bevel, and the backside is flat or possibly concave. So when we are sharpening these, we have to examine them to see how the maker made them. The more expensive handmade yanagibas that are made by swords makers tradition may have that edge grind from the shinogi line, a chisel grind that the bevel goes all the way down. I don't know that for sure. There's too many. There's too many knives made by too many handmade swordsmen, traditional swordsmen. So I don't know what is out there. These are not like that. This gets sharpened more like a regular knife, but you're only doing one side. The back side is simply to deburr the burr from sharpening the front side as it curls over. So these knives, even though they're single-sided knives, they are essentially sharpening an edge bevel on both sides, but that edge bevel is very tiny on the back side and defined on the front side. So these knives, single-sided knives, you may consider them that they're sharpened like a 90-10 offset when we were talking about the sharpening ratio. That would explain it, that 90% of your effort is on the shinogi side and 10% is for deburring on the back side. To just show you without going crazy, here are Deba knives, the same thing. There may be some Debas in handmade, expensive, with the Hagane and the core steel and softer steel here. You may find one of those that does have the shinogi all the way to the bevel and that it is a single chisel grind. These less expensive knives are not. They are single-sided knives, and the bevel from the shinogi line to the edge, we want to maintain that parallel. So that's what dictates how you would sharpen it in order to maintain the shinogi line parallel, to maintain the profile that the knife maker made the knife with. And then again, these knives are sharpened similar to a V grind, but you're only sharpening on one side. the burr rolls over to the backside, and then you're deburring it from the backside, which does indeed create a very tiny bevel on the backside. And then again, to describe sharpening ratios, the dispelled 90-10 would be a good way of describing your sharpening effort on these kind of knives. So I hope that I touch base on the single-sided. I am not going to tell you how to sharpen a single-sided knife because they are all different. The point I want to make is that they are not necessarily a chisel grind. I think that's a misnomer, that we think that they are these great big bevels and that we get to sharpen this bevel all the way to the edge. Some knives may be like that. There are chisel ground knives. These that I have are not. You have to look at these knives and identify and try to match them and see what they are. These knives, when I would sharpen them, I would use a marker and I match the angle and I try to replicate, emulate the grind that the original knife maker made, and start there for sharpness before I go reprofiling them and think that I know better. There's a reason they made it like this, so I want to use it like this first before I go changing it to what I think is better. So I hope I touched on the single bevel. I hope that I didn't bore you all to death. I'm going to do some more of this knife talk. We got to talk about steel and edge and quality of knives. I don't know when they'll be. We'll have more knife talk, but thank you for your indulgence.